Morning sunlight spilled across the lake like liquid gold. Willow Creek was quiet that day, the kind of quiet that makes you hear your own thoughts. From the porch, I could see the reflection of the old willow tree dancing on the water. It was the same tree my late husband planted the year Ava was born. I sat there with a cup of tea, watching the steam rise like memory. My daughter stood by the window, excitement softening her face. She had that glow, the one only love can bring. Ava had always been my gentle one, smart, idealistic, and too quick to see good in everyone. In 2 weeks, she would marry Eli Reed, a school teacher, with kind eyes and modest dreams. They met at a charity project, painting classrooms for underfunded schools. He'd made her laugh, then covered in blue paint, apologizing for dripping on her sketchbook. Ava said that moment felt like fate. I said fate sometimes needs a background check. She rolled her eyes the way daughters do when mothers worry too much. Mom, he's not like the others. He's humble, thoughtful. He grew up with less, but he works hard. I smiled, though part of me stayed cautious. I'd built my career in law, seeing how love stories turned into lawsuits. Still, Ava was 29, old enough to choose, young enough to believe. So when she told me she dreamed of starting her marriage in a home that felt safe, stable, in ours, I decided to give her one. The house on Willow Creek wasn't just property. It was history. Cedar walls my husband designed, every beam a piece of us. He'd said once, a home isn't about space. It's about peace. That day as we stood on the front steps, I handed Ava the small velvet box. Inside wasn't jewelry, but a key. This, I said, isn't just a house. It's a promise that you'll always have somewhere that's truly yours. She hugged me, tears in her eyes. Thank you, Mom. I'll make it a place of love. But I'd learned that love without boundaries is an invitation to chaos. So beneath the warmth of that gift, I built a quiet shield, a conditional gift trust. In simple words, the house was hers as long as it remained her sanctuary. If she ever gave up ownership, or if anyone tried to claim residence without consent, the title would revert automatically to the trust. I didn't tell her that detail, not because I didn't trust her, but because I didn't trust the world she was walking into. That night, we sat by the fireplace, sketching ideas for the wedding. She wanted a small ceremony, by the lake, white flowers, string lights. She wanted joy, laughter, family. I wanted her protected. When Eli joined us later, I studied the way he stepped into the room. Polite, maybe too polite. He thanked me for the house, called it a blessing. But blessings mean different things to different people. It's a generous gift, he said. We'll take good care of it. We, not she. The word slipped out too easily. Still, I let it go. Love blinds more than sight, it softens instinct. And I wanted to believe Ava had chosen right. The following week, we signed the papers. The notary came, the witnesses watched, and the key changed hands. You sure you don't want to keep partial ownership? My colleague whispered. No, I said. I just want peace for her. But peace, I've learned, is rarely free. As we toasted in the garden that evening, the breeze carried the scent of lavender and something else, a faint unease I couldn't name. Ava was radiant, planning her future. I watched her from the porch, smiling for her, praying for wisdom. Because no matter how grown our children become, a mother's heart never stops building safety nets. And mine that day was woven in legal ink. That night, before I turned off the lights, I walked through each room, the kitchen that would hold her laughter, the hallway that might one day echo tiny footsteps, the bedroom where she'd lay her head beside someone she trusted. I whispered a silent wish into the walls. Let this house keep her safe, even from love itself. Outside, the willows swayed. The lake shimmered. And I, Helen Carter, lawyer, widow, and mother, sealed my daughter's dream with both love and law. The next morning, a faint mist drifted across Willow Creek, blurring the line between water and sky. I was pruning the roses when the stillness cracked the crunch of tires on gravel, then car doors slamming in quick succession. Voices followed, brisk, unfamiliar, and far too loud for a neighborhood built on whispers. Ava appeared in the doorway, clutching her phone like a shield. Her smile was polite, uncertain the smile of someone welcoming guests who hadn't been invited. Eli stepped out first, hands deep in his pockets, gaze fixed on the ground. Behind him came his mother, Martha Reed, wrapped in floral prints and self-importance. She didn't greet the house. She assessed it, eyes scanning corners like a realtor appraising value. She murmured, running a finger along the mantel. These walls feel cold. We'll paint them beige, something warmer, more family-friendly. Not a suggestion, an order wrapped in courtesy. Then David Eli's father lumbered through the doorway, cigarette already lit smoke, curling above his head. He exhaled carelessly, letting the ash fall onto the rug Ava had chosen herself. "Nice little place," he said, tapping ash again. "Small, though. We'll need to move some things around once everyone's settled." Everyone. The word landed like a nail. Next came Grace Eli's sister Heels, clicking perfume slicing through the air. She glanced around unimpressed. "Well, it looks different than the photos. Guess wide-angle lenses do wonders." Ava laughed softly out of habit. "It's not a listing, Grace. It's our home now." Martha finished clasping her hands. I can already picture the new curtains. I stepped onto the porch, watching the scene unfold like a play I hadn't auditioned for. Boxes opened, coats draped across chairs. David wandered toward the kitchen, opening cabinets, nodding in vague approval. Martha had already claimed the sofa, issuing directions about rugs and drapes. Eli stood at the edge, silent, the quietest accomplice. When Martha started up the staircase, Ava followed, confusion chasing her steps. "Wait, where are you going?" "Upstairs," Martha said over her shoulder. "Master bedroom, right. Perfect spot for David and me. You two can take the guest room for now. Grace can have the small one." Ava blinked. "You're staying here." Martha turned amused. "Just until after the wedding, dear. Family should be close. Besides, hotels are so impersonal. You'll appreciate the company. Company. That's what invaders call themselves before taking root." Eli cleared his throat. "It's temporary, Mom." "Of course," she replied, waving him off. "Until you're properly married, then everything will officially be yours." Yours, not hers. The correction stung even from where I stood. Grace began snapping photos of the hallway. "We'll need better lighting," she muttered, "and a bigger mirror. This place is humble." Ava's voice trembled. "Mom, maybe they're just excited." "Excitement doesn't move furniture without asking," I said gently, stepping inside. The chatter froze for half a breath. Martha turned, smile, polite eyes, steel. "Oh, Mrs. Carter, we were just discussing improvements. The house has good bones, but a woman's touch never hurts." "Indeed," I answered, folding my hands. "Which is why it belongs to my daughter." Silence. Then like a match strike. "And soon to my son," Martha said. "That's how marriage works." David chuckled, smoke drifting. "Lawyers," he said. "Always gotta keep control." I met his gaze. Control isn't the same as protection. This home was a gift conditional. Ava's name is the only one on the deed. Martha tilted her head. "Conditional. A simple safeguard," I said. "Until vows are kept and respect is mutual." Eli shifted, torn. "Mom, maybe we should—" "Hush," Eli, Martha cut in. "We're family now. We don't need paperwork between us." I smiled faintly. Paperwork keeps peace between strangers, pretending to be family. Her eyes narrowed, a storm behind porcelain. She turned away, pretending not to hear. Ava touched my arm. "Mom, it's fine. They'll only stay a few days." I looked at her, my gentle, trusting child, and saw the ache of someone trying to please everyone and losing herself in the effort. By evening, the house no longer breathed the same. Smoke lingered in the drapes. The counters were cluttered with half-empty cups and crumbs. My daughter's laughter, once the house's heartbeat, had gone quiet. On the porch, I found her staring at the lake arms wrapped around herself. "Maybe it's just their way," she whispered. "Maybe this is what marriage means, blending families." "Blending," I said softly, "should never mean erasing." She sighed, eyes wet. "I just want peace, Mom." Peace, I reminded her, needs walls as much as doors. From inside, Martha's voice called out, demanding fresh linens, rearranging shelves. Each word another trespass. I watched Ava hesitate, caught between confrontation and courtesy. The night settled around us, heavy and silent. Later, after they'd gone to bed, I walked through the living room, restoring chairs to their place, gathering stray ashes from the rug. Small acts of reclaiming. At the mantel, I paused. The framed photo of Ava and me, once centered, now leaned askew, shifted aside to make room for Martha's vase. I straightened it, pressing my fingers against the glass. "Hold your ground, sweetheart," I whispered. Even gentle hearts need boundaries. Outside, the willow bent in the wind, its branches brushing the water like warning fingers. Somewhere deep inside, I felt the first tremor of a truth I'd soon have to face. They hadn't come to visit. They'd come to occupy. And peace, the kind my daughter longed for, would never survive if she kept surrendering room by room. So I turned off the lights one by one, sealing the house in quiet resolve. Because love builds homes, but only boundaries keep them safe. The days that followed blurred together, a quiet storm wrapped in politeness. From the outside, the house still looked peaceful, resting by the lake. But inside, something sacred had shifted. The air carried a different rhythm, now one dictated by footsteps that didn't belong. Martha's slippers scuffed down the hallway each morning before dawn, followed by the sharp clink of David's spoon against the coffee cup he never washed. Grace's voice floated from the kitchen, giving instructions like a foreman. And Ava, my gentle Ava, moved quietly among them, trying to hold the pieces together. She brewed the coffee, folded the laundry, wiped the counters, not because she was asked, but because she was afraid not to. Every act of kindness was met with more expectation. Every compromise became permission. When I stopped by one afternoon, the scent of bleach greeted me before she did. She stood at the sink, sleeves rolled up, hair tied back, scrubbing the same glass twice. "You've been cleaning," I said softly. "It's fine, Mom," she replied, forcing a smile. "They just have their way." "Their way," I echoed. "And yours?" She didn't answer. Instead, she rinsed the glass again, eyes lowered. From the living room, Martha's voice cut through the air. "Ava, dear, when you're done, could you bring fresh towels upstairs? And don't forget to iron David's shirts. He likes the collars stiff." Ava nodded automatically like a soldier taking orders. I watched her shoulders slump. Something inside me tightened. When she finally turned back, I caught her hand, damp and trembling. "Ava, I said love cannot save you if you have no boundaries." Her eyes lifted soft and tired. "I just want peace, Mom. Once we're married, they'll go home. Things will be different." The oldest illusion after the ceremony. Everything changes. But marriage doesn't fix what's already broken. It magnifies it. Peace isn't built on silence, I told her. It's built on lines. And you draw them, or someone else will. She nodded, but I could tell she didn't believe me, not yet. Sometimes, wisdom must be learned in bruises, not words. So I did what mothers do. I prepared in silence. That night, after they'd all gone to bed, I returned. The moonlight spilled across the porch, silver and sure. Inside the house was hushed, except for the slow hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of Martha snoring upstairs. I sat at the kitchen table and opened my briefcase. Carefully, I laid out the documents, the deed, the conditional trust, the signed clauses that held this home like armor. I made copies of everything, 3 sets, and stored one in my office, one in a safety deposit box, and one in a folder marked simply Ava's Peace. Next, I checked the front porch. Tiny black lenses, tucked discreetly in corners, already recording. Not for vengeance, but for clarity. Because in a house filled with shifting truths, evidence is the only light that doesn't flicker. When I left, I whispered to the door the same way I used to whisper to Ava's crib. Protect her, even when she doesn't see the danger. The next morning, the routine repeated. David smoked by the open window, ignoring the no-smoking sign from the HOA. Martha critiqued the curtains again. Grace complained about breakfast. Not enough variety, too much salt. And Eli sweet silent. Eli drifted through the chaos, apologizing for everyone and changing nothing. When Ava finally spoke up, it was barely a whisper. Maybe we could all take turns helping around the house. Martha turned sharply. We're guests, dear. You don't ask guests to scrub floors. Grace smirked, sipping coffee. Besides, you're home all day. What else would you be doing? Ava's lips parted, then closed again. The room swallowed her voice whole. Later, Eli found her folding laundry in the bedroom, their bedroom, though she'd begun calling it the guest room without realizing. You know Mom doesn't mean it, he said gently. She just has opinions. She gives orders, Ava corrected. He sighed, sitting on the edge of the bed. She's trying to help. Don't take it personally. It's our home, Eli, she whispered. Or, isn't it? He hesitated. We'll sort it out after the wedding. Let's just keep things calm until then. Calm. The word echoed like a prayer built on denial. That night, Ava called me. Her voice was small, like a child lost in her own room. Mom, maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe I just need to be more patient. Patience is a virtue, sweetheart, I said, but not a solution. You're not overreacting, you're under-defending. She didn't reply. Only silence. Long, aching silence. I looked out my window toward the lake. From across the water, I could almost see the faint light glowing in her window. My daughter alone in a house full of people. It struck me. Then boundaries aren't walls to keep love out. They're fences that let love grow without being trampled. But Ava still believed in the fairy tale, that marriage would turn chaos into harmony, that kindness could soften entitlement. So I let her learn just as I once had. I would not interfere again, not yet. Because soon life itself would hand her the pen, and she'd be forced to draw her first line. Mornings at Willow Creek used to begin with birdsong and sunlight. Now they started with shouting. By 7 o'clock, the house was already a storm. David sat in the living room, cigarette between his fingers, smoke curling toward the ceiling fan. The ashtray overflowed. Brenda, his wife Martha's sister, who'd somehow joined the invasion, was already arguing about breakfast. No eggs again! Ava, what do you do all day? A family can't live on toast. Grace's voice echoed from the hallway, sharp and impatient. We're out of almond milk. How many times do I have to remind you? Ava, still in her robe, moved between stove and sink, her hands trembling, but her voice polite. I'll run to the store after this. Just give me a minute. A minute, Grace scoffed. You've had all morning. You're not a guest here, you live here. Take some responsibility. The words landed like stones. Responsibility. For a life that wasn't hers anymore. David turned up the television, smoke trailing from his lips. Ava, honey, grab me another beer, will you? And be quick about it. She nodded automatically like a reflex learned through exhaustion. Every plate she washed, every towel she folded, every chore she finished, only birthed another. In this house, once given as a gift, she had become the help. By mid-morning, Brenda was rearranging kitchen cabinets. Grace stomped from room to room, phone pressed to her ear, complaining about the Wi-Fi. David sprawled across the couch, shoes on the table, muttering about sports. And Ava, gentle, hopeful Ava, floated between them all like a ghost with a to-do list. From the porch, Martha called out to her. Ava, dear, my friends are dropping by for tea. I told them to park in the driveway. Make sure the guest bathroom's spotless, and do bring out the fine china. We'll show them the house my son bought. Ava froze. Your son bought, she repeated softly. Well, of course, Martha said, breezily stepping inside. It's his name on the door soon, isn't it? Don't be petty, dear. No one likes a woman who counts. Ava swallowed the words she wanted to say. In this family, silence was survival. When the doorbell rang, she opened it to find 3 women, dressed in pearls and judgment. They walked through the house like appraisers, nodding approvingly, touching furniture, as if pricing it. Oh, Martha once said, admiring the view, what a lovely home your son found. So much class for a young couple just starting out. Yes, Martha beamed. He has good taste. We'll change the paint soon, make it brighter, more welcoming. Behind her, Ava stood, small hands, clasped like a decorator, waiting for orders. The women clucked in agreement. A wife's first duty, one said kindly, is keeping her husband's house in order. Ava smiled weakly. Of course. But her eyes drifted to the corner camera, one Helen had installed, quietly hidden behind a vase. It blinked red, watching. Across town, Helen sat in her office, paperwork open, but eyes on the live feed. She watched her daughter move through her own home as though trespassing. Every deer sounded like a leash. Every compliment was another chain. Helen sighed, leaning back. She'd known love could blind, but she hadn't realized how quickly it could cage. Still, she said nothing. Not yet. Because sometimes letting the wrong people show their nature was the only proof the right people needed. Back at the house, Ava's hands ached from scrubbing dishes after Martha's tea party. Grace walked in frowning at the sink. "You missed a spot." "It's clean," Ava murmured. "Not by my standards." She shoved the plate back into Ava's hands. "Do it again." Ava's breath caught in her throat. Her reflection wavered in the soapy water. Tired eyes, hollow cheeks, the faint outline of a woman disappearing. In the living room, David coughed loudly. "And while you're at it, could you bring me another pack of smokes? You know the brand." Ava dried her hands. "David, the HOA doesn't allow smoking indoors. We've already had complaints." He laughed low and dismissive. "Let the HOA come knock. They'll find a real man living here, not their little rule book." When she didn't move, his eyes narrowed. "What's wrong, girl? Think you're too good to help your family." Family. The word was turning rotten. That night, as Ava cleared the table alone, Martha called from the couch. "You're lucky you know. Some girls never get a family as close as ours. You should be grateful." Ava turned cloth in hand, voice trembling. "Grateful, yes. For a husband who shares. For in-laws who care enough to guide you." Grace snorted. "Guide. We're saving her from herself." They laughed. Ava didn't. In the quiet after dinner, when the last dish was stacked, she finally stepped outside. The lake reflected the moon, calm and indifferent. Her phone buzzed a message from her mother. "Are you okay?" Ava hesitated before typing back. "They're just adjusting. It'll get better." Across town, Helen read the message, eyes narrowing. Adjustment was supposed to bring balance. This was conquest. She glanced back at the camera feed, saw Martha giving a tour, pointing proudly at the fireplace, calling it a family heirloom in the making. Helen closed the laptop. For now, silence. But soon, silence would end. Inside the house, Ava turned off the lights, one by one. Each click echoed like a question. How long can kindness hold a home together when everyone else is tearing it apart? By the time I arrived, the sun was folding itself into the lake, painting the sky in tired gold. The porch light hadn't come on yet, but I could see her silhouette, small, still fragile against the fading light. Ava sat on the steps, knees drawn to her chest, face hidden in her hands. Her shoulders trembled in quiet rhythm, and the sound that reached me wasn't sobbing, it was surrender. I stopped a few feet away, letting the silence speak first. Some truths can't be forced. They have to rise like breath after drowning. Finally, she looked up. Her eyes were red, her cheeks streaked with salt. "Mom," she whispered, "I don't know how to make them stop." I sat beside her, the wood cool beneath us. The lake stretched wide and calm, mocking the chaos inside the walls behind her. For a moment, we said nothing. Only the crickets dared to fill the quiet. Then I spoke. "If you let them cross your boundaries, Ava, they'll take your peace. And once they have that, they'll move for your soul." She turned to me desperate like a child, searching for rules in a game she never agreed to play. "I just want calm before the wedding, Mom. I don't want to fight. I don't want to be the reason everyone's unhappy." "Peace," I said softly, "doesn't come from silence. It comes from knowing where to stand." Her eyes welled again. "But if I stand up now, they'll say I'm ungrateful, that I'm ruining things." "They'll say that anyway," I answered. "Because people who live off your kindness will always call your boundaries cruelty." A breeze brushed past, carrying the faint scent of cigarettes and cheap cologne, David's presence, even in absence. Behind us, laughter spilled from the house, loud, unbothered, claiming space that wasn't theirs. I saw her flinch at the sound. "You gave them permission, Ava." Not in words, but in silence. In silence, I paused, is consent to those who feed on it. She lowered her gaze, twisting the ring on her finger, the one Eli had given her when promises still felt safe. "He says it's temporary, that after the wedding things will change." "Temporary," I echoed, "like a leak that fixes itself." She gave a small broken laugh, the kind that sounds like memory, not joy. "I used to love this porch," she said. "Now I come here just to breathe." "Then breathe," I whispered, "and listen. Because the air is the only thing left here that's truly yours." We sat there watching the light fade. I wanted to hold her to promise rescue. But mothers learn some lessons only take root in pain. So instead, I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder. Inside were photos, letters, printed notices. Evidence. I handed it to her. "What's this?" Reminders, I said, of what happens when people forget the rules. She opened it, eyes scanning the pages. The HOA violation for smoking indoors. The citation for noise complaints. A letter from the board warning of eviction if the behavior continued. And beneath them, photos David's cigarette burns on the porch railing, Brenda's clutter in the shared garden, Martha's friends posing by the lake, captioned, "Our family retreat." Ava's fingers tightened around the edges. "You've been watching." "Protecting," I corrected. "Not every war is fought with shouting. Some are won with records." She closed the folder, breathing slow. "What do I do now?" "Start small," I said. "Say no to one thing, just one. The rest will follow. And if they get angry, then you'll know the truth, that their love depends on your obedience." From inside, Grace's voice rang out. "Ava, we're out of napkins again. Could you?" Ava froze, glancing toward the door. "Go," I said. "But this time walk. Don't rush. Let them wait." She hesitated, then nodded, wiping her eyes. When she stood, her shoulders were still heavy, but straighter. It wasn't strength yet, but it was something close. As she disappeared inside, I stayed on the porch, staring at the house I once believed would keep her safe. Through the window, I saw David leaning back on the sofa, smoke curling toward the ceiling, Grace scrolling her phone feed on the table, Martha sipping wine, laughing as though the world bent to her will, and Ava, quiet, graceful, Ava refilling their glasses. Not for long, I promised myself. I pulled out my phone, snapped another photo through the window. The smoke, the clutter, the posture of ownership that didn't belong. Each click was a small act of defiance, a whisper into the record. Noted, noted, noted. When I finally left, the stars were beginning to bloom across the sky. The house glowed behind me, warm and wrong, like a lantern left in the hands of thieves. In the car, I glanced at the folder beside me. Evidence stacked like stepping stones. I didn't know yet when the storm would break, only that when it did, my daughter would not drown alone. Because sometimes the kindest thing a mother can do is stop wiping her child's tears and start sharpening the truth. Dinner that night was supposed to be simple, a quiet meal before the weekend. But peace, I've learned, doesn't survive long in a house where respect has already been evicted. Ava set the table with care, each plate placed like an apology. She lit candles, hoping their glow might soften the room's edges. But some darkness doesn't fade with light. From the moment Martha walked in, the air turned sharp. Her perfume arrived before she did heavy commanding. David followed, cigarette tucked behind his ear, muttering about traffic. Grace scrolled on her phone, half listening, half bored. Eli came last, quiet eyes, down a man already retreating from the battle he refused to name. They sat, and for a moment, there was silence. Not peace, just the uneasy stillness before a wound splits open. Ava poured water past. The bread smiled out of habit, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. Martha looked around, surveying the room like a queen in borrowed chambers. "You've done well enough, Ava," she said, cutting her steak. Though truthfully, I would have chosen something larger for Eli. He deserves space, status. This place feels temporary. Ava froze knife hovering above her plate. "It's our home," she said softly. "Of course, dear," Martha replied, voice sweet as poison. "But let's be honest. Without my son, you'd never afford a house like this." The words hung heavy, cruel in their certainty. David leaned back, taking his cue. "She's right. You're lucky, Ava. Not every girl gets to marry up." "Up," Ava repeated, voice small, disbelieving. "Well," he shrugged. "A man like Eli, good family, good name. You should be grateful." Across the table, Grace laughed. Grateful and quiet. That's what makes a wife. They all chuckled, a harmony of entitlement. Except Eli. He stared at his plate, hands, folded lips sealed. Ava turned to him, searching his face for rescue. He didn't look up. The silence cut deeper than any insult. Her breath shook. She placed her fork down slowly, carefully, the calm before the quake. "So that's what you all think." No one answered. They didn't need to. The smirks were enough. Martha dabbed her lips with a napkin. Don't take offense, dear. We're just being honest. Marriage is about knowing your place. Something inside Ava snapped, not loud, but final, like a string pulled too tight for too long. Her hand clenched the napkin. My place, she said. Voice steady, now clear. I thought it was my house. Martha's smile didn't falter. You mean our house? Ava's chair scraped the floor as she stood. No, I mean mine. David scoffed. Big talk from someone marrying into this family. You should remember who's giving you a name. A name, Ava's voice rose. What good is a name built on belittling others? Eli shifted, finally looking up. Ava, please. They didn't mean it, she snapped. They've been meaning it since the day they stepped through the door. The table fell quiet. Even Grace set her phone down. Ava's eyes filled, but her voice didn't break. I've cooked, I've cleaned, I've bent until I barely recognize myself, all to keep this family from crumbling. And still, it's not enough. It will never be enough for people who see kindness as weakness. Martha leaned back unimpressed. You're emotional. Weddings do that. Take a breath before you say something you regret. Ava laughed, low, bitter, heartbreaking. Regret, she whispered. The only thing I regret is believing love could survive without respect. Then she looked at Eli, really looked at him. The man she once trusted to stand beside her now sat small, shrinking into silence. And you, she said, voice trembling, you just sit there. Let them tear me apart while you stare at your plate. Do you think silence makes you innocent? He tried to speak. I'm sorry, Ava, but they're my family. And I'm what she asked. Your project, your peace offering, your afterthought. He opened his mouth, closed it again. No defense left. The candles flickered, shadows climbing the walls. Ava's straightened eyes, clear voice cold as lake water. I would rather be alone, she said, than live another day with people who call cruelty tradition. And with that, she tore the napkin from her lap, tossed it onto the table, a flag of surrender turned declaration. The room froze. Even the clock seemed to hold its breath. Martha spoke first, tone clipped. If you walk away now, you'll regret it. Families forgive, but pride doesn't feed you. No, Ava said, turning toward the door. But it finally lets me breathe. Eli stood halfway, reaching out. Ava, please? She stopped, looked back, one final glance that held both love and loss. You had your chance to speak for me. Now I'll speak for myself. Then she walked out, steady, silent, free. Through the window, I watched from the porch. I didn't rush in. Some battles a mother must let her daughter fight. Some victories must be earned in broken voices and trembling hands. As the front door closed behind her, the laughter, the arrogance, the noise, all of it fell into stunned quiet. Inside, Eli sat down slowly, staring at the napkin she'd thrown. It lay in the center of the table like a verdict. And Martha, for the first time, had nothing to say. Morning light poured through the window like forgiveness. For the first time in months, Ava woke not to shouting, but to silence, a silence that belonged to her. The house, once a battlefield, now breathed again. Every room echoed softly with something new, peace. The chaos was gone, but so was the version of her that allowed it. In its place stood a woman who had learned the cost of boundaries and their worth. She returned to her work with quiet determination. Architecture had always been her language, and now every blueprint she drew felt like a manifesto. Strong lines, open spaces, balance between walls and light. Soon, clients noticed the shift. So did the community. Her designs began to speak not just of beauty, but of strength. Homes that didn't just hold people, but protected them. One afternoon, her manager approached with a smile. Ava, there's a conference next month. Women and Boundaries in the Modern Workplace. They want you as a keynote speaker. She blinked, surprised. Me? Who better, he said. You've lived it. You've rebuilt it. People need to hear that. And so she said yes. The weeks that followed were filled with preparation. Long evenings drafting her talk, quiet mornings rehearsing by the lake. Helen watched from the porch, proud but silent, knowing some victories a mother must witness, not shape. When the day arrived, Ava stood on the stage lights, warm against her face, the crowd leaning forward. She took a breath, steady, sure. We're taught that love means patience, she began. But patience without boundaries is permission, and peace without voice is captivity. So today, I don't want to talk about walls. I want to talk about doors, the kind that open inward but also lock when they need to. The audience held its breath. Ava smiled, not nervous, not timid, but alive. Her voice carried strong and gentle, like a sunrise that refused to apologize. When she stepped off stage, applause followed like a wave. She didn't chase it. She simply bowed her head, thankful. In the lobby afterward, amid handshakes and congratulations, she met him. Daniel. He stood by the refreshment table, listening quietly, not trying to be seen. A man in his early 30s suit pressed, but unassuming eyes, steady and kind. When she approached, he smiled, not the practiced smile of someone rehearsing charm, but the soft one of recognition. You said something on stage, he began, about doors that open inward. It reminded me of something my mentor used to say, respect is space. Ava tilted her head. I like that. Respect is space. He nodded. I'm Daniel, by the way. I run a small startup. We design sustainable housing. I came today to learn about leadership. Turns out, I learned about boundaries instead. She smiled. They're part of leadership too. He hesitated, thoughtful. You've been through something, haven't you? She chuckled softly. Haven't we all? He didn't press, didn't pry, just nodded. For what it's worth, you spoke like someone who knows where she's going. Maybe, she said, but I'm in no rush to get there. His eyes softened. Good, because I'm not looking to rescue anyone. I just want to walk beside them. The words landed gently like raindrops on new soil. For the first time, Ava didn't feel the need to explain herself. She didn't feel small or fragile or defined by what she'd endured. She felt seen, not for her scars, but for her stance. They shared coffee after the conference, then another the week after. Conversations flowed not as interrogation, but as exploration. Daniel spoke with intention, listened without agenda, laughed without volume. He didn't try to solve her past or promise her perfection. He simply showed up on time with kindness, with clarity. Ava found herself smiling more, not because someone told her to, but because peace had become her default, not her prize. One evening, as they walked along the lake, Daniel paused. You know, he said, I used to think love meant leading, guiding, making life easier for someone. And now, she asked. Now I think it means walking beside someone strong enough to go alone and being invited anyway. Ava looked out over the water, the reflection of twilight shimmering like a promise. I don't need someone to lead me, she said softly. Just someone willing to walk with me. Daniel smiled. Then I'll keep pace. She turned to him, steady, sure, unafraid. And for the first time since the house had fallen quiet, her heart opened not out of need, but choice. Weeks turned into months. The house at Willow Creek bloomed again, not with noise, but with warmth. Helen visited often, sipping tea on the porch, watching her daughter build not just a life, but a legacy. Ava's conference speech was published online, shared across networks. Emails poured in from women around the country, stories of reclaiming space, of drawing lines, of finding peace without apology. One message read, "Your voice gave me courage to leave. Thank you." Another said, "Boundaries aren't selfish, they're sacred. I know that now." Ava replied to each one, quietly grateful. Late one evening, she stood by the window, watching the stars rise over the lake. Daniel sat beside her, sketching something in his notebook, a design for a home they might one day build together, equal parts strength and grace. "You're quiet," he said. "Just thinking," she replied, "about how far peace can travel when you finally let it." He closed the notebook, took her hand. "To peace, then," he said. "To boundaries," she added, smiling. "The kind that let love in and keep the chaos out." And as dawn broke over Willow Creek, Ava realized this wasn't the end of her story. It was the beginning of one. She was finally righting herself. Evening settled gently over Willow Creek. The sky brushed in strokes of gold and rose. The lake shimmered in quiet conversation with the setting sun. On the porch, two women sat side by side, a mother and daughter, their silhouettes framed by years of lessons and love. Between them rested 2 cups of tea steam curling into the soft air. They didn't need many words. Some bonds are stronger in silence. Ava spoke first, her gaze drifting toward the water. Her voice was steady, but low, like someone speaking to both the past and herself. You know, Mom, she said, I used to think happiness meant being loved. Helen turned slightly, studying her daughter's face. The lines of worry that once lived there had softened, replaced by calm. And now, Helen asked. Ava smiled faintly. Now I know love isn't always peace. Sometimes it's noise dressed up as devotion. Sometimes it's chains painted gold. Helen nodded, eyes glimmering with understanding. Happiness, she said, is a guest. It comes and goes. But peace moves in and redecorates your soul. Ava laughed softly, the sound rippling across the lake like light. So peace lasts longer than happiness. Peace doesn't need to last, Helen replied. It simply is. It waits for you to stop chasing and start listening. The sun sank lower, touching the horizon, a slow bow to the day that had been. Ava leaned back, resting her head against the porch post. It's strange, she murmured. I thought the fight would end when they left. But the real battle was inside me, learning not to answer anger with anger, learning not to let their voices live rent-free. Helen reached over, taking her daughter's hand. That's the hardest part, she said, because victory isn't just winning the war. It's refusing to keep reliving it. Ava squeezed her hand. How did you do it, Mom? How did you stay calm when they humiliated us? Helen smiled, eyes fixed on the glowing horizon. Because I learned long ago, anger burns fast, but peace builds slow. And I wasn't raising a match. I was raising a foundation. The words settled between them like truth, finally finding its home. Ava looked toward this house, the same home that had once been filled with noise, now standing quiet and open light spilling through its windows. You know, she said, this house was supposed to be my dream. But I think it's meant to be more than that. Helen tilted her head. What do you mean? I don't want it to just hold memories, Ava said softly. I want it to hold meaning. Maybe we could open it. Let it become something for others. A space for women who need a place to start over. A home where peace can begin again. Helen's eyes softened. A sanctuary, she said. Ava nodded. A new purpose. A fund, maybe. Workshops. Counseling. A place where they can breathe. Helen smiled, that rare, quiet smile that comes when a mother realizes her child has not only healed, but grown. Then that's what it will be, she said. Your gift forward. The house began with love. Now it continues with grace. They sat there as the last of the daylight slipped behind the trees, watching as shadows stretched across the grass and the first stars blinked awake. Inside the walls that had once held pain now held promise. Plans were already unfolding. Renovations meetings, a name for the new foundation. The Willow Creek Women's Fund. Soon the house would open its doors again, not to uninvited guests, but to women seeking refuge, guidance, a fresh start. Not just a home, but a haven. Ava breathed deeply, letting the quiet fill her chest. I think I finally understand, Mom. Understand that revenge isn't always about striking back. Sometimes it's simply living a life they can never touch. Helen smiled, eyes reflecting the fading gold. Exactly. The best revenge isn't fire, it's flourishing. The porch light flicked on a small beacon in the twilight. Crickets began their chorus, soft and sure. Somewhere across the lake, a loon called out one note, pure and free. Ava rested her head on her mother's shoulder, whispering into the growing night. Thank you for not letting me lose myself. Helen brushed a hand through her daughter's hair. You never lost yourself, she said. You just had to walk far enough away to see her again. The sky dimmed to indigo. The stars spread wider, brighter. The lake mirrored every shimmer, every truth. And as they sat together, wrapped in the soft hum of evening, Ava realized peace wasn't something she had found. It was something she had chosen. Every no she had spoken, every boundary she had drawn, every step she had taken toward quiet, steady strength, it had all been leading here. The world behind her could keep its noise. She no longer needed to prove anything. Because real power doesn't need applause. It just needs space. Her voice, calm and certain, carried into the dusk. I don't need to hurt anyone. I just need to live a life they can never reach. Helen nodded. And you will. The camera of memory pulled back, framing the house aglow with evening light, the porch alive with warmth, the lake whispering serenity. Above them, the last hint of sunlight faded, leaving behind what mattered most: stillness, understanding, and the quiet triumph of peace.